kind of my explanation of brand builders kind of at the end when our guests come, but we'll just go ahead and get started because I know your time is valuable and I'm super excited to have my friend Amber, even though she's with K-State. Sorry, I'm just kidding. Join us because and I'm pretty sure, Amber, didn't we first connect through Jennifer Allwood?
Yes, I think that was how we first got connected.
Yes. So I was in a community group with a coach, and I reached out and kind of what I was needing, and I connected with Amber. So Amber has actually been behind the scenes of writing blogs for me for several months now. I don't know how long, 5, 6 months or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
And so it's been really great to work with Amber. And I thought, okay, a lot of our audience, we're starting to move into that expert, how to position yourself as an expert and really leverage your authority, your influence, your messaging with blog. And as we talk about a lot in Brand Builders Academy, there are so many ways that we can repurpose our content, right? That's been our word. I've told you that's been my word for the last year and a half now. It's just like repurposing content. And so having a blog really is one of those ways that's great to have because then you have it for so much of your content through the month and it really helps you plan ahead. So I know at the beginning of the month is generally when we do our training on why is a blog important? Why should you care about having a blog? And what are some of the ways that you can leverage it? So Amber is going to be able to dive in really deeper. That's what we do each week. We break down that topic and we keep going deeper and deeper with it. And Amber's got some really great content to share with us and a worksheet. We love worksheets in BBA because that helps us like put things into action and do it. So she's going to walk us through that. We're going to get some practical things done. But yeah, so like I said, that's how I met Amber originally and have worked with her. She's been great to work with. And so I'll let Amber kind of explain a little bit, give her a little bit more of a bio, maybe how you got to where you are now and how you usually are serving your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So, words are my favorite thing. Writing has always been something that has been a part of my life, whether it was through journaling or as in my career. And so I've written curriculum, I've written blogs, I've written for different types of presentations. And so when I transitioned into running my own business, I do social media marketing and strategy. I help with digital marketing across the board for clients. But for me, copywriting and write words in general carry so much power. And one of the things that I think has sometimes gotten lost because video is such a powerful tool is that we've lost the art of the written word. And, blogs back in the 90s, early 2000s, they were a huge thing. That was how people communicated that's how they got their message across. And then it kind of fell off a little bit. And it would be like, oh, you blog? Oh, that's so old school. And now we're seeing it resurface again, where it's a really valuable tool, not only to share your message and to let people know what you're about, what you can do, but also provide ways for them to have a next step to access your services, your products, whatever that might be. So blogs, for me, when I started seeing blogs reemerge as a really valuable marketing tool, I was like, yes, let's do this. Let's use the written word for that. I understand that not everybody feels confident in their writing skills. And so I want to talk a little bit today about how you can create a sustainable blog strategy, even if the written word is not your favorite thing to do. There are some people who could sit down and they could crank out a beautiful written piece, and it might actually be a very beautiful piece, but it wouldn't necessarily be a great blog. And so we're going to
Mm.
talk a little bit about the components of a blog that actually make it strategic and helpful in your marketing strategy. So I think I'm going to just dive in. I'm a talker, guys, so I'm gonna just fly through. If you feel like there's something that we need to touch on, jot yourself a note, because at the end I'll have some space for some Q&A that you guys can ask. Okay. All right, we're gonna dive in.
And
So
so I need to
yeah,
make you
go ahead.
co-host, right?
Oh yeah, you can do that. I won't share the worksheet until the end, so that's not, I don't need to do that right now.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then
But
we'll
yeah,
just do that at the end. Okay. No
awesome.
problem.
Okay, so we're going to first talk about what it looks like to set up a blog content calendar. I'm a big person, I'm really big on, if you don't have a plan, you're probably not going to execute the way that you really want to. So coming up with a content calendar around what you're going to blog and when you're going to blog it is a really valuable tool. There are a lot of tools out there that you can use to do that. Dubsado, Asana, all kinds of different ClickUp, all different types of project management tools that you can use. I personally use Trello. It is free. There is a paid version, but it is free, so it's a great option. And it makes sense in my brain the way that the workflow works, and so that is how I use what I use when I'm doing a blog planning kind of platform. This helps you keep in front of you what you're going to be blogging about, or at least a rough idea of what you're going to blog about for the entire year. And the worksheet that I have is actually going to help you get some of that groundwork laid so that you have an entire year's worth of blog content at your fingertips. So that when it's time to sit down and write, you're not sitting there spending half your time just going, what should I even write about, right? So setting up a planning process, a blog content calendar, a project management tool, whatever that looks like for you, is going to be a really, really important first step. If you already use one for your business, go ahead and use another page of that or set up a separate one for your blog, because that is going to be something you're already familiar with and you're not having to learn a brand new program. I've done that before. It's not always very much fun. The next thing that you're going to want to think about is brainstorming your blog topics. Heather and I were able to jump onto an Instagram Live the other day. I don't know if you guys were able to see that, but in that we talked a little bit about how you can start thinking about topics. And one of the things that I suggested is sit down and think about, when people ask me for advice or for help, or they come to me for a specific skill set, what do they come to me about? What are they asking me? What are the things that people already naturally in my life view me as an authority figure or an expert in? Those right there, right out of the gate, are going to be excellent starting points for your topics. Now, if someone comes to you and they're like, they really love coming to me if they have a question about how to execute a dinner party, you may sit here and go, okay, how does that translate into my business? That doesn't necessarily feel like it translates directly, but it does. Some of the things that you're talking about with planning a dinner party is how to think about what your guests are going to need, how to create a workflow and a plan around when you're going to execute certain preparations for that dinner party. Those types of concepts and things are translatable into your expertise. So it can translate. It may not look like it at first, but it can translate. I also recommended in that Instagram Live, if you feel stumped and you're like, I have no idea what people come and ask me about, ask people. Go to your friends, put it out on your Instagram or on your Facebook. Ask your followers, what would you want me to help you with? If you were to come to me for something, what is the thing that you would ask me about? You will be surprised at the things that they say to you that you wouldn't even have necessarily thought about. When I was first getting started in my business, I asked people, what are some of the things that you would come to me and say, you're an expert in this, Amber, can you help me with this? And they were like, I always ask you when I'm needing some kind of creative perspective on something. I'm stumped, I'm stuck. Can you help me think creatively and outside of the box with this? Even though that might have been my sister saying that or my best friend saying that, and they obviously weren't coming to me as a business owner asking for my help, it helps shape a lot of the way that I frame my expertise. I have a creative perspective. I can help people think outside of the box, and that applies in my blog writing and in my business and in my services that I offer. So think through that from that perspective. Even if someone offers you something that doesn't feel immediately applicable to your business, it can be. You just have to think about it. What are the skills that that requires? The third thing that you have to think about is identifying your audience and their needs. Now, as of being a part of Heather's group, you probably have already thought a lot about your avatar, about your audience, about their pain points, about the specific things that you solve for them or that you provide for them to help make their life better or easier. That exact stuff, all of that information, we can now take and use as a basis for our blog content. If your audience is coming to you because they, for instance, in my audience, a lot of times they just don't have the time to execute their social media strategy. They know that social media is necessary. They know that social media is a big component of their business, but they don't have the time. They're like, I just feel overwhelmed every time I sit down. How do I make a reel? How do I make my post? How do I do these things? So one of the things that I talk about and that I share is how to make a sustainable social media strategy, how to set it up so that you can batch content and not sit there and have to do it all over and over and over again throughout the entire month. That is something that I can teach them because that's their pain point and it's going to jump out to them. So when you're thinking about your audience and you're brainstorming topics for your blog, you're going to want to look at their pain points, look at who they are, the things that they need you to come through for them on, and then you're going to want to meet them with a blog or with content that is going to immediately answer those pain points. That is going to be a huge way to also create SEO. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, of how to use keywords that are searchable and that people are going to, that's how they're going to find you. Another thing to think about is when you're brainstorming blog topics. That is a tongue twister. When you're brainstorming your blog topics, you can also think about the different types of content that you want to put out there. It can be very story driven. You can sit down and tell a story. You can share kind of from beginning to end, here's the arcing overview, but you also can share how-to lists. You can share case studies. You could come up and have a client that you've worked with and you could share their entire story. Your blog content doesn't have to be, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pour out my heart and I'm going to share all of my expertise. It can be in a list of, here's 5 things that you need to be doing right now to get to this next point in your business. Or this is 5 things that you could do that would help you improve your life. I was working with a local interior house painter, and he had a blog and he had a blog that he was like, Amber, help me write this blog. And so I was helping him write the blog, and he's like, it doesn't really matter. Will people read a blog from a painter? Is that really a way that we can help drive business? And I said, a blog is going to underscore your authority, and it's going to show people that when it comes to painting inside of their home, it's more than just slapping paint on the wall. You are an expert in that area. You are thinking about way more than what they would think about. Essentially, you're telling them why they should hire you instead of doing it themselves or hiring someone else. So we did a lot of how-tos. We did a lot of 5 ways to prep your home for a painting project. We did a lot of those lists in his blogs, because those are the types of things that it would catch their eye because they're thinking, I have a house project coming up. I need to do this. Those keywords would jump out at them, and then they would find him, and then they would say, oh, well, why don't I just hire this guy to come in and do the project instead of me trying to do it myself? So that was how we utilize different types of content as opposed to him just writing and just putting paragraphs out there. Another important thing to think about is the timing of your content. So when you're thinking about the calendar, and this is something that in the worksheet, it'll help you kind of think through, but there are different times of the year that you want to put content out there. For instance, if you have a business that is seasonally driven, perhaps holiday shopping season is a really big part of your business, you're going to want to think about the types of blogs you're putting out in preparation for that. If you have like, let's say November, December is a really big holiday shopping time. You are not going to want to put out a holiday blog in November and December. You're actually going to want to put out a holiday blog in September or October, because those are the times when people are starting to think about it. It gives time for the SEO to take route, and it gives them the ability to find you when they're looking for it, as opposed to if you put out a blog on December 12th about holiday shopping, someone is like, well, that's great, except I already did my shopping 4 weeks ago. So I'm not going to be looking for that right now. There's also important industry types of timelines. For instance, I was working with a coach at one point in time. She coached school teachers. So she had been a school teacher for years and years and years, and then she had retired, and now her side business was coaching school teachers to help them with their lesson plans, to help them with their classroom behavior modifications, all of those different elements that a teacher would want to still continue developing in. She was coaching them. Her blog had to reflect back to school season, not right now when it's literally back to school season, but it had to reflect it back in, late June, early July, because that's when teachers are starting to think, okay, I'm kind of getting nervous about this upcoming school year. I need to start planning for this. And they'd find her blog content, and then it would help lead to potentially them reaching out for coaching. So when we're thinking about calendar, the calendar and the timing of your blog and the timing that it's put out is very important. And it's important to have that. That's why that calendar, laying it out for the year is so key, because you've already got that. You already know, okay, hey, it's July and I need to start planning for this. Or hey, it's October, I need to start planning for this. Let's see, make sure I find my way. I'm not skipping over anything. Let's see. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the actual writing process and how to create a writing routine that works for you. So for some people, sitting down and cranking out a blog is a piece of cake. It flows, the words just flow from your brain onto the screen or onto the paper, and it is not a problem at all. But for others, you sit down and you stare at that piece of paper or you stare at that screen and you're like, what the heck is supposed to happen here? So there are a couple of ways to help you kind of get into the writing mood. You can do it more as an outline first. So if you are sitting here going, okay, I want to make sure that whoever's reading this, my audience, they learn this, they learn this, they learn this, they learn this, and at the end, they walk away with this. When you write out an outline like that, that gives you a framework that then you can go back in and say, okay, I don't need to think about all of these bullet points. Right now, I'm going to think about this one bullet point. They need to learn this, and I write a paragraph about that bullet point. Then you can go to the next bullet point and the next bullet point and the next and next and next. Another really valuable tool is AI. Now, I want to always caution folks, because if you plug in some information into AI and allow it to spit something out, it is going to read like it's AI, which is artificial. It's called artificial intelligence for a reason. And so I really encourage folks to be very cautious when they're using it, to look at it as a tool as opposed to the end all and be all. It can be very valuable. It can help you brainstorm. It could help you write that outline that I was talking about. It can help you kind of get the framework going. But goodness gracious, if it is copy and paste directly from that, it is going to sound so artificial and so not like you. You want to make sure it is your message and your voice that you are sharing. I also always caution folks, because technically, the whole point of AI is that they go in and I'm saying they as if it's like a human. But the AI, they go and they pull from other websites. So you could very easily be publishing content as your own that is not actually your own. It is actually coming directly from someone else's content. And just like in school, that can get you in a lot of trouble. So I always encourage folks, use AI as a tool. It is a great starting point, but it cannot be the end all and be all of how you actually come up with your content. Another thing that you can use if editing or grammar is really rough, there's tools out there like Grammarly and Hemingway app that can help you just double check for periods and am I capitalizing right and am I using the commas right? And I don't even know if commas even right now anyone knows how to use a comma right because they keep changing the rules on them. But those tools and those apps can help you with some of that. You can plug those things in, you can have it double check. You know, spell check is a glorious thing. So do that. I also encourage you, once you're done writing something, read it out loud to someone. So often when we write something, the way we write and the way we speak are not necessarily the same thing. I mean, it's not, I actually do write the way that I speak sometimes, and that's why I use a lot of ellipses, dot, dot, dot. But I encourage you to read it out loud because sometimes you'll catch things where you're like, that's just awkward. That does not sound even like me at all. So take a minute, read it out loud, or pass it off to someone else. Let them do a really quick pass through it, read through it, and ask them, just be honest with me. Does anything feel clunky? Does anything feel weird? Tell me what it is. So that's another really great tool if you struggle with writing and it feeling stiff or not feeling like you. Now, I want to talk a little bit about incorporating some SEO best practices into this writing process. So inside of your blog itself, typically a blog length that is really good is between 800 and 1200. It's words, 800 and 1200 words. I was about to say characters, and that is a social media thing. 800 to 1200 words is a good length. Anything much shorter, it can, when Google crawls your site, it can look like it's not much of anything or anything substantial. Anything much longer, and you're going to lose people's interest. So 800 to 1200 words is kind of that sweet spot in the length of your blog. But then you also, within that, you want to identify the keywords that you're using. You want to incorporate internal and external links. You want to make sure that you have images in your blog, and each of your images has meta descriptions that go with it. And I'm using a lot of technical like lingo, and so I'm going to break this down for you just really, really briefly. But I also want to encourage you, if you have questions about this part specifically, please feel free. I don't know if like have an email or whatever for me, but you can reach out to me. I don't have any problem breaking this down for you. So images inside of your blog make it look pretty, which is great. But it also provides metadata to Google whenever it crawls your site for it to tell it what your blog is about. So inside of your images, you can add a meta description. And each platform is different. So whether you have WordPress or you have Wix or you have Squarespace, you'll have to kind of play around to find where that's at. But essentially, it provides a description of what's either happening inside of the picture or the keywords that you want to indicate for the blog. Keywords should always be relevant to the content. So if your blog is about holiday shopping and why they should consider your product as the perfect gift for their loved ones, it would be silly for it to have a keyword that does not have to do with holiday shopping and the product that you're trying to sell. That would be silly. You want to make it relevant to the blog itself. But inside of those images, you are going to want to make sure that you have a meta description. Heather just commented about web crawling. So Google crawls your site. They have it literally, someone once explained it to me. It's like a little spider crawls your site and it looks for content, whether it's new content, relevant content, but that is how you get ranked on Google. It is how they classify you within searches. So if someone's searching for certain things and you have those words on your site, Google will crawl your site and they will look at that. This is why a blog is so valuable, because Google will crawl your site regularly if you have new content that you're adding. But if you put out a website and you never change anything about it, and you never add a blog, or you never add a video, or you never add any of these extra components, it doesn't have anything new to crawl. So it will stop crawling it. So this is another valuable tool that a blog provides, is that you have regular new content on your website, even if it's just once a month. Um, Keywords. There are some really great tools out there that you can use for keyword research. It can also just be super simple. It can be keywords of what would people be searching for that you would, if they searched for this, they would find you. So it doesn't have to be super, super complicated. Whether you're using a tool or you're using just your common sense, relevant information to the blog itself, you can add keywords, but you'll want to have the keywords in both the body of the blog and also within those meta descriptions. And then internal and external links. So the links are, when SEO crawls, if you have external links, and okay, I'm trying to explain the SEO part of this. So let's say, Heather, I hope this is okay. At one point in time, I was doing a blog for a chiropractor. And we were building and using external links of other chiropractors or other practices or other articles that helped to not only support her content, but also if someone was searching for something that fell within that link or within that article, they could also find that particular blog. So it's just one more, it's like instead of one pathway to your blog, we're creating multiple pathways, which is all what we want. We want people to land on your website. We want people to find you. So the more external links you can provide that are relevant, you don't want to provide irrelevant links because that will confuse Google. We're creating extra pathways into your blog. Additionally, internal links are links from your own site. So for instance, when I help support Heather with her blogs, a lot of times we will do an internal link to another blog that she's already written. Sometimes like she has a blog that talks about what it means to be a brand strategist. And so a lot of times we'll use that because if someone lands on that blog, they also can find their way to this other blog. Or if they land on this blog, they can find their way into this. You can also use internal links for your booking link, your discovery call link, your shop, if you have an online shop. There's a lot of different ways that we can do internal links. But again, the links are all about providing extra pathways to your site. And we want people to find you. So that's the whole purpose of a blog. Let's see. How am I doing on time? Am I okay?
Yeah, no, we're doing fine. And just so you know, I'm just kind of like helping support. So if you have
No,
your
no.
chat open, so as you're talking about things that I just think it might be helpful kind of
Yeah.
for some other descriptions, I'm just like
That
Googling
was
as you're in there and pasting, and I've been outlining
so
for you. So
helpful. Let me look
yeah.
and make sure have I hit on everything?
Yes, you have. I've kind of been walking through your outline, so for people
Okay.
watching the replay and on live, you can kind of
Yes.
see the chat and
No,
save the
I
chat.
saw when you're like web crawl, I was like, oh yeah, I have to explain this. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I
No,
use
it's
that
all
word
good.
and people are like, what is crawling my website? What?
Right. Right.
Okay. So the next thing, okay, so now you've put out a blog and that's great. But then what do you do with it? Right?
Mhm.
So a blog provides you with all of this amazing content, but then you can do so many things with it. There are so many different ways that you can promote your blog, that you can repurpose that content. It is kind of you've already put in the brain power. You've already put in the time and the effort to build this thing and to put so much work into the content of it. Now you have this little treasure trove of content that you're like, I already have this. So how can I repurpose this content? So one of the first and foremost things that you can do is to talk about it. Put it on social media. If you have an email list, put it out to your email list, use an email newsletter. You can even do collaborations. This is another cool little thing you can do. You can have a guest blogger on your blog and say, do a little forward at the beginning and have a guest blogger talk about a certain piece of content or a certain topic, and then you can close it out. And then that person can also help you with their promotion by them talking about it themselves. So there's a lot of really cool ways that you can just first and foremost promote the actual blog itself. You then can take the content and you can break that out into other ways of sharing it. You can do videos about it. So you've already written it. Now you just take pieces of it and you do short form video where you can make reels or TikToks or YouTube shorts. Such an easy thing to do. You can take it and you can take part of that content and create carousels that again, you can talk about on social media. You can create an opt-in that helps with a next step. So let's say this piece of blog information is super valuable. And then at the end, you say, here, I have this little worksheet, or I have this little, opt-in. Like I have let's go back to holiday shopping. I have a holiday like shopping list, like checklist that you can download that will help you streamline your holiday shopping, because we all know that time of year is super stressful, right? So that download now allows someone to click on it, to opt in, to give you their email, that now you have captured their information and they're no longer just a reader, but they are a part of your community. So there's a lot of ways to take a blog and help it actually promote the next steps within your company. Engaging with readers and encouraging comments is another really great way. Commenting on blogs can be harder to get people doing. I'm not going to lie. But it is still something that you can do, where you can say, hey, what kind of content would you like to hear more about? Or what questions do you have for me? Or if, we were to do this or this, what would you choose between these two things? And sometimes those really easy ways to engage can help encourage people to take that next step, and again, leave a comment or engage with you directly. So promoting your blog content, it's great to put it out there, but don't just leave it there. Definitely do something with the content. Let's see. Okay, I was going to share, before I go on to share the worksheet and show you guys that, let me just see if there's any questions.
You guys
Or
can unmute if you want to ask a question.
Or Heather, if you have questions that you're thinking like would help for the replay, we can do that too.
Right. So could you just speak to a little bit like um, because some of the people in our community, and I think two of the gals who are here live are with a direct selling company, and they might even be doing multiple things. So, um, how would you say would be a really, yeah, whether it's a topic or just kind of direction? Because I can't remember. Diane, do you have another website outside of your direct selling company or a platform?
Working on it still.
Okay. Or do you have like a link tree that you use on social?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Still building.
Yeah. So do you know what platform you're looking at building your website on?
Through social facts.
Okay.
So yeah, it's with one of the women that it just really works with compliance very, very well, because we have to be so compliant within.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you say to kind of do things like that? Like if people, and I'm not familiar if Social Fox has a blog feature, but
No.
how would you say would be, just kind of like a good way? Let's say somebody right now only is using their direct selling site. Is there another, like you could probably just do a platform with just a blog feature,
Yes.
right? Like Square or some of
Yes, I would
those.
have to look, but like back in the day, there were things like Blogspot and things that
Mm,
literally just for blogging. And so you could
hmm
set up an account through that. A link tree is super valuable, because obviously inside of your social media and things like that, you don't want to remove your primary website of how people would purchase from you, or how they would move to that next step for being a customer. So I would use a link tree, and then underneath that have Blogspot, or have your blog in there. From a compliance perspective, I worked with a regional VP of a direct selling, and she had to be very careful about what she put out and how she said things, and making sure that she was very compliant because of the claims that you could make, or the words that you could or could not say. So I understand that can be a little bit tricky. I would definitely check with your specific company and just confirm, first of all, having a blog is okay. And then if they have any parameters or any specifications of the things that you can or cannot say, do, that kind of thing, your industry is not the only one that has that. You know, there's whether you're in the medical industry, you have to be careful about
Mhm.
the claims that you make and the things that you say. So you're not alone in that. But once you kind of get the parameters and you know what you can do, then you can just work within those and definitely drive a lot of business. And I know the big thing that Heather talks about all the time is how to set yourself apart. So if you're in a direct sales situation, there are other people literally that do exactly what you do, right? So if you're wanting to set yourself apart and to show people that you're not just the average consultant or the average, you know what I mean? This is a great way to do that because you're able to bring your special touch and your expertise plus the product that you're selling, plus the thing that you're selling, and you're able to present it in a unique way this way.
Yeah, that's great input. Thanks for that. And hopefully that's helpful too. Because I
Mhm.
know, Pat's working on some things too, and she may want something that's, simple and easy to publish and communicate with
Yep.
your email list and things like that. And that's what we always talk about too, is that when you can own your own email list, that's just a really good idea. Um,
Yes.
Especially so that it's more than just your customers that are in your database, but it's also prospects. It's people that
Yes.
aren't ready now, but could be. And
Right.
so really building that. And I was just looking quick. Wix is one that I use a lot. That's what my platform is on, and a lot of my clients. That's ranked as a really has a free portion just for blog. There's also something just called Blogger.
Yep.
Um, and HubSpot has free blog. I mean, probably really any platform. It's just getting the
Yeah.
free aspect with the blog. But
I have Squarespace. It is, I would say, so after using both Squarespace, writing for Squarespace, I've also written on WordPress, would not necessarily recommend, but if that's where you're at, that's okay. There is a blog option. It's just a little bit more complicated. I would say Wix, honestly, Heather, is the most user-friendly when it comes to blogging, and it is the most intuitive. So
mm,
when you get into it and you're looking at it, it's actually immediately laid out like the blog would be. So as you're building it on the back end, you can see what it's going to aesthetically look like, as opposed to some of the other platforms. Until you either do a preview or you publish it, you have no idea what it actually will look like to the public. So I like Wix a lot, and I would highly recommend if someone's getting started to check that platform out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. Well, that's good to know, because I always say Wix for me feels very intuitive,
Yes.
and so yeah, so that's good to know. So I know we won't have a whole lot of time moving forward. So, and I know you've got your worksheet. Do you want me to
Yes.
share that with you, and you can just kind of walk through?
Um,
Let me share
yes.
my screen,
Yeah,
or
that's
make
perfect.
you co-host is what I'm looking for. And did anyone else have any other
Any other questions?
questions, things that would help you to take that next step? Okay, well, hopefully this worksheet will help too. And so what we're going to do with this worksheet is go ahead and put your email in the chat, and we will send you this worksheet. So then you can have it and print it and use it and all of that good stuff. So just put your
Yes.
email in the chat and we'll get that sent to you.
So this blogging strategy, this is just a framework that you can use. It is not necessarily the end all and be all. There's probably others that are out there, but this is something that I use. And when I'm working with blogging clients, a lot of times I will try to walk them through this process. Even if I don't give them this form, I will just say, hey, like, let's talk about some topics. Let's talk about who your audience is, that kind of thing. So the first thing is that brainstorming your expertise. What are the skills? What are the topics that I already just naturally know that I love talking about, that come really easy for me? And I was talking about that, the direct sales gal that I worked with, she was in a health and wellness like direct sales situation, but she also was building her own as an influencer in the health and wellness area. So she was building her own business while she was also a part of this direct sales business. And so one of the things that she really loved talking about was aging and your health and wellness. And that was her big platform. So we really broke down all of the different topics that would pertain to that. And you would be surprised once you kind of get those creative juices flowing, you'll be like, oh, I know this and I could talk about this and I could talk about this. Like it can go really far. The next piece is your audience identification. And again, if you're already a part of Heather's group, you probably have done quite a bit of avatar audience development. So you probably already know who this is. What is their age or age range? What's the gender that we're talking about? What's their typical occupation or industry? What are their interests? What are the things that they like? Then you can also break it down and say, like, if I were to break it into 3 audience groups, who would I talk to? So again, going back to that health and wellness influencer, she was speaking to people just like her. She was about to turn 60. She was in this place where she was kind of hitting that transition of life of like, am I aging well? How am I aging in a healthy way? So she was speaking to people directly like her, but she also had an audience group of people who fell more in that like 10 to 15 years before that. Because she's like, some of the things I want to talk about, I wish I had known 10 to 15 years ago as I was in the process of aging and I was able to actually care for my body preemptively as opposed to now trying to do it kind of on the back end. And so she had 2 different audience groups that she was speaking to in her content. And sometimes simultaneously, but she had to be aware of both audience groups. And we would sometimes identify, who are we talking to here? Are we talking to this group? Or are we talking to this group? So you guys can do something similar on this worksheet. Then we want to talk about the audience pain points. What are they hurting from, man? What do they need help with? What really gets under their skin? What is so like, what are the things that are pertinent to them? And then you want to follow that up. It's easy to just say, these are their pain points. We want to actually talk about and add in there, what is your solution for them? How are you solving that for them? And sometimes it is, I'm going to solve it by giving them a way to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to solve them with this checklist, or I'm going to solve that with some encouragement that they're not alone. It doesn't have to look like I'm giving them an answer, but you have to have some way that you're answering that pain point. And if you just leave it at the pain point, that can sometimes mean, okay, how do I actually address this in a blog? So always include the solution that you're offering. Then we're just going to do some logistics. What are the annual landmarks or dates that we want to consider? Are there holidays or dates? Right now, one of my biggest clients I support is a bookkeeper. And we are constantly talking about whether it's tax prep or tax season or whatever that might look like for your business. That's one of the big things that we talk about. So we keep in front of us, when are the quarterly things happening with the end of each quarter? How do we talk about, hey, it's the end of the year. Have you sent out your, what are the W-9s, and have you done all of these different things? So there are different landmarks that you want to include. And then you also want to consider the seasons. Perhaps your business pertains to the literal, spring, summer, fall, winter, but it also may be different seasons like tax season or something else that falls within your business. So you'll want to list all of those things out. Then down here, we take all of that information, we take your expertise, we match it up against the pain points, we look at the different seasons, and we start placing things into the calendar. So knowing that my audience needs these things, and knowing what my expertise is, and knowing what the seasons look like, in January, I need to be speaking about X. Or in August, I need to be speaking about X. So you can start slotting those in to your calendar. You'll also pretty quickly know, okay, wait, I don't have anything in April. What do I want to be talking about in April? Do I need to revisit something from a different time? Do I need to make March a 2-part? Do I need to invite a guest blogger onto my blog? There's ways then that you can start identifying where the gaps are, and then you can address those directly. Again, this is a really simple process. I'm hoping that this shows you that it doesn't take much to be able to start kind of getting a blog strategy in place. But it definitely is a tool that you can use, and we can send to you guys that you can use on your own. I'm gonna stop that share.
Perfect.
But
Is that helpful to you, ladies? Yeah. Yeah. It helps to just like, okay, let's just start, because I think we've talked about this. Sometimes just staring at a blank screen, say, okay, I have to write a blog. You're like, But, I think when you're kind of in this rhythm and in this flow of, okay, let's plan ahead, let's really think about it. And we always are talking about that in our group, is rather than just randomly posting something on social media, like, what's the strategy behind it? What is our main call to action that we want to drive people to? So, it's getting to be back to school season right now, and that's, colds and people getting sick, and that's, new season are coming ahead. So, for those of you on the call, like, there's so much that you could jump on now. I mean, back to school, probably a little late in the game, but nonetheless, cold and flu may not hit really until, October.
yep.
So, and seasons and parts of the country are all a little different. So it really helps you just kind of like look ahead and, pin that up in your office. So even when you're doing social media, let's say you do this blog strategy, and then you're like, okay, well, I can really align that with my social media, like where everything's really sounding the same, because we've talked about that, right? Like saying the same thing over and over and over. I just had this conversation with my husband, because we kind of go at it because I don't have time to do his social media for him. And so he posted something the other day. He's like, okay, well, I don't really want to say any sort of call to action until tomorrow. I was like, you never post something without a call to action, like ever, ever, ever. So, anyway, it's constantly saying the same thing. So, and I think even too, like grabbing a couple sentences from your blog and then using that as a static post, using that as a reel, using that as a carousel, same copy, different visuals.
Yep.
Nobody is going to remember that copy in there. So just really, I encourage you to use that strategy, because it will make you feel so much more cohesive with how you're putting your brand out there. And as Amber has given a lot of really good tips in terms of SEO and a lot of those things, when you do have a website, it really is going to, when you're intentional about something, it just makes a difference, right? I was just at a conference, and one of the phrases that's really sticking with me is, success doesn't happen on accident. It only happens on purpose. And that's so much in life, isn't it? I mean, your business doesn't get successful on accident. It has to be on purpose, with attention and intention. And so all of this whole blog plan is really in alignment with all of that. So I love all of that. Has this been helpful? Diane and Pat, you want to like maybe unmute and give me a takeaway or an action that you feel like, okay, I can at least do this one thing to get me started?
It's been very helpful. It really just, it aligns with the social media content, and it really is very similar, and I can see where you can definitely repurpose the content much more easily.
Yeah.
Or even reference to the content that you've already done elsewhere.
It's funny because I have people who will sometimes say like, well, we already talked about that. And I'm like, listen, if someone comes to you and says, why are you talking about this again? You talked about this here, here, and here. They're like a super fan.
Yeah.
And you should actually just celebrate that, because they're looking at all your content. So like, don't worry about it, because the likelihood of that happening is very small. And if it does happen, it means that they are really invested in what you're doing. And you can just say like, thank you so much for following me on all these platforms.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, totally.
Definitely. How about you, Pat? What did you latch on? I know you've got a lot of things cooking in the works here. So
I do have a lot of things cooking. I think, I've tried to write blogs before, and I kind of think I have a strategy, but I never write anything down as far as, as a former teacher, a lesson plan would be very supportive for me. And I just realized that just now. But I am one who writes and then closes it down and goes away
Mm.
and comes back the next day or the day after, rereads, go, oh, good grief, and change things around that way. But I like the idea of reading it to someone as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
And
Oh, I
go
was
ahead,
going to say,
Amber.
when it comes to planning, I am a visual, so I love this worksheet, but I
Mhm.
actually end up doing it more. So I will use my office wall and use Post-its and kind of, so that's a lot of the times how I do my planning, my annual planning. If that's your jam, like break out the Post-its, break out the note cards, whatever that looks like. Because for me, being able to visually see it mapped out on my wall is so valuable. So I'm just saying there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. This worksheet gives you a framework, but it isn't the end all and be all.
Well, I was
Yeah.
thinking as you were talking, I need a whiteboard. I could get a whiteboard and put it at the back,
Yep.
and then I can play with that. So
Yep.
that will be on my let's do soon.
Love that. Love it.
Yeah, I love that. And I do, I've done post-it notes before, and like I kind of use different color post-it notes,
Ah,
for the topics, or it just helps me kind of visually break it up a little bit. So that's awesome
well, and the
too.
cool part is if you're doing, so you do the pain points and you already have all your skills and your
Mm,
expertise listed, and you can literally start moving those Post-its like, oh, this one answers this pain point and this one answers this. Like, it's so fun. Anyway.
I love that. That's a great idea. That's a good idea. Well, this has been really, really helpful, Amber. I really appreciate kind of you just diving in and sharing your expertise in this way. And, one of the things that we could do on our next week's Brand Builders is like have a blog. Maybe that's what we'll do. Have a blog and let's read it out loud and kind of work through it a little bit as a group, because we talked about the value of reading it out loud. So why not do it? It's in our safe place in our community group.
Mhm.
So,
I love that.
yeah, so I think that is really a great idea. So, thank you again, Amber. We really appreciate you coming, and how fun that you get to be an adjunct professor at your
I,
local community college. That's so great.
it's gonna
You're
be a
going
lot
to
of
do a
fun.
great job. And I'll post in our community group too Amber's contact information. So if you want to ask her more questions, connect with her on social media, I'm sure she would love. It's socially inspired. And you know what? Could you just put that link in the chat? Maybe just socially inspired, and see, and then people know how to connect with you. Um, that would be great.
Yep, I will do that.
Perfect. So we will include that. There's her link in there. So she's on all the fun social channels, but socially inspired. It's an easy and a fun one to remember. It's Amber W. I never even tried to pronounce your last name, because, or when I go to spell it, I got the start of it, but when I know socially inspired, I can always find you.
Yeah. It's Weyrauch. It's so simple.
Weyrauch. It
It's so
is, but it
simple to
just sounds,
say, but
it just,
it's very complicated to read. So
it is. It definitely is. So awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming. We're so glad that you joined us here today and watching the replay. And we'll be in touch soon. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Sure. Bye-bye.